So we're going to start with lesson 3, which is Dalda and monophonemic consonants. So monophonemic, it's just a fancy word to say only has one sound. So we're going to cover Dalda, which clearly has more than one sound since it doesn't fall here. And then the first set of consonants I have that only have one sound. These are letters we're going to talk about today. We have Dalda, Tada, Laula, Bi, Ro, Bi, Fi, Shai, Hori, Chai. Notice in the old pronunciation, these two letters had the same name. It's because they had the same sound. So it was hard to differentiate them back then. But when you learn the sounds they make now, you'll be able to read the names in what should be their current pronunciation. So this first letter, Dalda, or if you read it with the pronunciations we learned so far, or will learn throughout today, is ⲛⲓ. So ⲛⲓ it looks like, well, it is what we call delta. Delta is that triangle shape that we all learn in math class, and that's the fourth letter in the Greek alphabet, and it's the fourth letter in the Coptic alphabet. Now, delta, both in Old Greek and Old Coptic, used to just make a D sound. In Greek, it evolved to make a the sound. The sound in the word this. And you could spell that with either a TH or a DH. It's up to you. You'll see why I differentiate with a DH in a second. So, normally it makes a the sound like this. But if it's in a name, then it's going to retain the old D sound, because names usually shouldn't change regardless of the language evolving. Although at times it does, but it usually shouldn't. So here, if it's in a name, it's a D, but any other time, it's a the sound. So here's some words. Also, it's in Greek words almost only. So the first word here, diakonos, which means deacon. Here, this one's a name, so Daniil. Daniil. Realize this also makes an E sound, but it's a bit longer than this one. This symbol right here, you don't have to know this, but this symbol right here in the IPA tells you to say it longer. So Daniil, Daniel. And then, I'm not sure if we covered this letter yet. I don't think we did. But this letter makes like an X sound. It's X. So here it's doxa, which is glory, doxa. So diakonos, Daniil, doxa. Now, here's why I wanted delta to be spelled with a DH and not a TH. This letter here, old name is Tida or Tada, is theta, which you guys might know as theta. So theta is the circle with a line through it. And that makes a th sound, but it's a different th sound than delta makes. It's the th sound in think. Now you might ask, what's the difference between the TH sound in delta and the TH sound in theta? If you say this thing in English, this thing, you should be able to hear these THs make different sounds. And if it will help, if you put your fingers over your vocal cords, so on your throat, and you say this thing, you'll notice when you say this, the TH in this, the vocal cords are vibrating. So this is voiced. And when you say thing, when you hold the th sound, there's no vibration. So the linguistic term is voiceless. So to compare this with other letters that you should be familiar with the differences, the is similar to D as is similar to T. So these two letters are made the exact same way, except the D has your vocal cords involved. So if you hold the d sound and a t sound, when you say t, there is no voice. And another example is Z and S. So if you say the z sound, z, you feel the vocal cords moving. But if you make the s sound, the S sound, your vocal cords are not being used. So that's voiceless. If you notice other languages, when they don't have a th sound, these are the letters they will switch to. So if you speak to an Egyptian and you tell them to say this thing, they're going to say this sing. So they know there's a difference between the th sounds, but they just can't articulate it. Some other languages will say this ting. Like for example, someone with a Jamaican accent, they would say this ting. So this letter always makes the voiceless th, always makes the th sound. So some examples. Theos, which is God. It's a Greek word. Thmav. Sometimes there's a jinkim here, so it'd be ethmav, but you could just say thmav. That means the mother. And then thi. Thi. That means that. The rest of these letters should be simple without much explanation. So this letter, laula, in Greek, it's called lambda. So if you guys are a little familiar with Greek, you guys should already know that lambda makes the L sound. Makes the L sound. So here it's Lucas. Remember these two letters together make an U sound. So Lucas. This word is pronounced lipon. It's a Greek word. Now you might be asking, Peter, what happened to that O right there? And we will talk about that in lesson 5. Just know for now that O is silent. So lipon. And then the last word, logos, which is the word or logos. Logos. This letter will be in the next lesson. Now this letter is very easy to get. So this letter looks like pi, which is pronounced P in Greek and in Coptic. So P, it makes a P sound. So here would be epuro, lipon again. And then here's a new word, parthenos. Parthenos. So the pi looking letter is always a P. Now here's where it gets tricky. The P looking letter is not a P. The P looking letter is an R, but the R sound that it makes is the R sound in other languages, like in Arabic, how you just tap the R. It's like ra. It's not like the American It doesn't make a sound. So a way you could think of it is if you know how to roll R's, like if you took a Spanish class or an Italian class where they roll the R, it's like rolling it, but you just tap it. You hit it once. So instead of ra, it's ra. But if you already know the Arabic R, you're already set. So example words are, two of these we already repeated. Epuro, so see here it makes the R sound. Ran, that means name. You know when we say Chenefran Emefiot, in the name of the Father, Ran is name. And then Parthenos, virgin. This letter, modern pronunciation would be phi. In English, you might know it as phi, but I will not refer to this letter as phi, and you'll see why, I think, in 2 letters. So this letter is called phi, and it makes an F sound. Very simple. So here, this is phi, that means that. Phi, which means this. And then philanthrope, which means lover of man. realize philanthrope, that this is the origin of the English word philanthropy. Philanthrope. Sometimes it's translated, and this word is translated in the liturgy as philanthropic one. So philanthropy means a lover of man. Now this letter, it looks like the omega letter we learned before. It looks like O, except it has a tail. So you need to see the difference between these two letters. This one is just the O sound, but this one always makes a sh sound. So here's some examples. We have Rashi, Share, Bush. Rashi, rejoice. Share, it's a word to use for the habitual tense. So if you want to say something always happens, you would start the sentence with share. So there's a hymn that says God takes away our sins, but we start the hymn with share. So it's like saying God always or habitually takes away our sins. And then we have osh, which is cry out or cry. Now here's why I didn't want to call phi, because this letter in Coptic, its name is phi. So the letter that looks like a Q and the letter that looks like a line with a full circle around it, they both make an F sound. There's no difference in modern Coptic. The major difference is if you spell it with a different letter, it'll be a different word, obviously, and the grammatical implications of both letters. So here we have pef, which means his. We have erof, which is him, and we have f2 or f2. That's 4. Now this letter, you could see how this is the only letter you'll see where the capital and the lowercase in most fonts will look different. Just realize if you see some sort of line and a curve coming out of it, it's this letter. And the name of this letter is chai. So whether it curves out or if it's a straight line and it comes out, or if it looks like it connects, it's just chai, always chai. Now chai, like the name says, it makes the ch sound, which is only found in like one English word, but it's common in Arabic, ch. So here we have a couple of words, for example. Ignore this one. This one does not include that letter. So we have chen, which means in, and we have onch, which means life. And a little fun fact, onch, if you guys are familiar with the word ankh, which is the symbol used for like the key of life in ancient Egypt, the word ankh is the ancient Egyptian word for life. So ankh is this word. The hieroglyphics didn't really show vowels well. So Egyptologists assumed to put an A in here, but it's shown in Old Coptic. They had a hard time differentiating the A sound and the O sound. So we clearly see here an ancient Egyptian word still survives in Coptic. Now we have this letter, hori. If it looks like a backwards S, it always makes an H sound. So we have hiten, hijen, tob. So something hard with Coptic is sometimes we have words just ending with an H, which is not common in English to have a consonant in H, but in Coptic it's a normal thing. So tob.